Musavada Viramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Suramerya Majjapama Dattana Viramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Tisaranena Saddhing Panchasilang Dhammang Sadhukang Surakhitang Kattva Appamadena Sampadeta. So now it may be a good idea to mute all your microphones so that there's no disturbance in the sound. I will start by explaining something about meditation in general. Hello. Some people are still having their mics on. Could you kindly mute them? And maybe some specific meditations also as a kind of theoretical introduction to the meditation. And that might differ from what you are used to, I don't know. And therefore, I would like to give an opportunity after this introductory talk for you to ask some questions regarding the things I've said in the talk. After the Q&A session, the first Q&A session, I will be conducting a guided meditation, which is a little bit over half an hour meditation. And then we'll have another Q&A session regarding specifically your experience in your meditation, and if you have any questions about it. Not that I have an answer to every question, but you are invited and you are able to ask any questions that you like. So first of all, the introduction to meditation. As some of you, or maybe most of you, already know, that there is difference between samatha bhavana, tranquility meditation, and vipassana bhavana, that is insight meditation. Samatha bhavana, tranquility meditation, has many different techniques. Actually, if you look at the monumental work called Visuddhimagga, or the Path of Purification, by Buddhaghosa from the 5th century AD, or CE, we should say nowadays. The 5th century author of that book, Buddhaghosa, has spent 1,000 pages on meditation, and most of it is about different forms of tranquility meditation, different types of meditation that lead to tranquility in the mind. So some people would say, in order to get peace of mind, I should practice tranquility meditation. Well, that may be true up to a certain point, but meditation in that way, tranquility meditation, usually takes an object, either an external object or an internal object, to focus on, to concentrate on, and to try and get rid of any kind of distracting thoughts, and maybe suppress those thoughts, and keep on coming back to the chosen object of your meditation, such as, for instance, anapana, the object of the mindfulness of breathing, the touch sensation of the breath inside the nostrils as an object for your concentration. And quite a lot of people, seem to think that you have to force your mind to stay with that object. And if you can't stay with that object because the mind is wandering, then your meditation has gone for a 6, so to speak, or that you are a failure in your meditation. Well, fortunately, that's not the case. Maybe you're not perfect in your concentration, but you have to understand that that is the nature of the mind. It doesn't want to stay with one chosen object, especially so subtle as the touch sensation of the breath inside the nostrils near the tip of your nose, because it's so subtle. And as you concentrate on it, sometimes it becomes subtler and subtler, your breath becomes shallower and shallower, and then you might come to a state of tranquility. But as J. Krishnamurti has pointed out, that is not real peace of mind. It's just a piece of the mind, if you notice the difference. Real peace of mind is if you can be in touch with the unconditioned state of the mind, and a peace of the mind is when you manage to concentrate on a certain object, either external or internal, and keep it with you for a substantial time, for a number of minutes, let's say. And if you manage to do that, you get a certain feeling of tranquility. But that is yet what we call conditioned state of mind. If you remember the search of Prince Siddhartha for his final liberation, he went in search of meditation, and he went to the best meditation teachers of his time, Alara Kalama and Brahmaputra, and they taught him actually tranquility meditation by some form of mantra, perhaps, or the breathing technique of pranayama and things like that. Maybe they could teach him up to a certain point, even to the what is called the 8th dhyana. We are seeing that there are 8 levels of jhana, 4 Rupa jhanas and then 4 Arupa jhanas. And the 8th one is so deep and so high that we may not even feel our physical body. And it is said that a person who is in that state could sit for a week without eating or drinking. Well, that has been surpassed by the Buddha boy in Nepal. I suppose he sat for a whole year without eating and drinking. But anyway, that is not real peace of mind, or it's just a piece of the mind, because you have been focusing on one particular object. You've been discarding or excluding other objects which come to your mind. Not only thoughts, but also sounds, maybe sensations and things like that. So what to do with those kind of objects? That's one question that one could ask. So in order to just mention one more famous tranquility meditation, which is the Metta Bhavana, or the development of loving kindness, which we will also be doing at the beginning of our guided meditation, by the way, in order to soften the mind and to bring it to a state of tranquility in rather relatively short time, and also to create what is called tranquility through skillful states in the mind, kusala cetana. So that is something which we can practice, not too difficult, but you can't get to the final state of realization through just tranquility meditation. Again, as J. Krishnamurti used to say, you cannot reach the unconditioned by staying within the conditioned mind. And all these exercises which we do, all the 39 objects of tranquility meditation mentioned in the Visuddhi Magga, well, Those are all kind of reshuffling of our conditioned mind, maybe towards kusala or skillful states. That is better than unskillful states, of course. It's better than developing anger and greed and lust and hatred. But it doesn't really solve the problem of being and samsara, rebirth, and suffering. So if you're really interested in overcoming the conflict and suffering or the dukkha in this conditioned existence, then one would have to go for vipassana or um, insight meditation. Vipassana meditation nowadays is being very often identified as invented by S.N. Goenka, the famous Indian teacher of Vipassana meditation, who started many, more than 150 meditation centers around the world. First in India at Dhammagiri near Nasik, sort of northeast of Bombay, and later on all over India and all over the world. And then people started thinking that it was Goenka who invented Vipassana. But really speaking, it is the Buddha who invented Vipassana. He realized when he went to his meditation teachers and they said, well, we have taught what we can teach you, now you have to do it on your own. He realized that there is something else beyond what they taught, beyond this tranquility, and that is the unconditioned state of the mind, or nirvana. So he went in search, you can say, of nirvana and found that it is within himself, not somewhere outside the body and mind, but basically it's already there within him. And he found out that by paying attention, practicing sati of the body, the feelings, the mind, and the mind objects, Chatu Satipatthana Bhavana, that he could come to a realization of the three characteristics of anicca, dukkha, anatta, which was not possible through tranquility meditation. So, for instance, through metta bhavana alone, you cannot get to that realization of nirvana. Maybe you have to let go of that state of metta and then continue on with, meditation based on satipatthana bhavana. In order to realize those three characteristics, anicca, dukkha, anatta, which help you to give up greed, hatred, and delusion. It's the delusion, basically, the moha or the avidya, which the Buddha mentioned, which is at the very beginning of the, the chain of the paticca samuppada, that it is avidya paccaya sankhara, that it is the state of delusion which creates our sankharas or karmic activities. And because of those karmic activities, actually, we do stay in the samsara. If we want to get out of samsara, not because of a selfish kind of motivation, but because of understanding that samsara means rebirth, birth, death, and rebirth. And when there's rebirth in whatever level of existence, there will be some form of dukkha or unsatisfactoriness or conflict. And therefore, unless we want to choose for the path of bodhisattva, which is another possibility, which is the path in the Mahayana and Vajrayana as well, which is part of Mahayana actually, that one says, well, just to get out of samsara for oneself is sort of selfish, and one should be able to choose for a path which helps more other people and other beings, but it is a very long path. So, and one has to develop all those paramitas, like Prince Siddhartha in his previous lives, the 550 Jataka, not only 550, he lived many thousands of previous lives, only the 550 have been written down. And therefore, one says, according to Theravada Buddhism, well, if you can get out of samsara yourself, that's enough. So that's why the Theravada Buddhists basically say that Tum amam aham nivining senaseva piprarthana karana. So duking nidas, that means free from suffering and eventually reach the bliss and the peace of nirvana. Not outside of ourselves, not in another lifetime, not in another world, but in this very body and mind, and maybe, if possible, in this very life, if not in this life, as soon as possible. So, well, I've been going on for more than 20 minutes, and I promised that you could ask some questions regarding this introduction. So we'll keep the questions about your own meditation towards the end, but about this talk, the contents of this talk, if you have any questions or remarks or criticism even, then you're welcome. You can unmute your microphone and I will hear you. Oh, Hans. Thanks, you lady.
If people have questions, please raise your hand. Venerable sir, it looks as if people don't have questions.
Yes, so that's
there is a question. There's one question. Okay. Go ahead.
Venerable sir, thank you for that talk. Just two questions. You mentioned J. Krishnamurti. I'm not familiar with who that is, and I also wonder why you mentioned the Krishnamurti name. Is that like to ratify? I'm not so sure about that. The second question I have is, like, you spoke about the tranquility-based meditation and the insight-based meditation, and then there's a lot of meditations that is listed in one of the suttas. I can't remember. But why is it that there's so many? Because at the end, we have to anyways get on to insight meditation. So why have they listed so many?
Okay.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question in two parts. The first part, J. Krishnamurti, if you haven't heard about him, you really missed something, I would say. So in YouTube, go to Krishnamurti, just Krishna, Krishnamurti, M-U-R-T-I. And there are several Krishnamurtis. This is J. Krishnamurti. He actually passed away in 1986. And around the same time as in Sri Lanka, Dr. E.W. Adhikaram. Dr. Adhikaram was the one who tried to introduce J. Krishnamurti to Sri Lanka, which he did by inviting him several times. And I've been going to listen to Krishnamurti in different parts of the world, even in Holland the first time, and in Switzerland, in England, in India, and a couple of times in Sri Lanka when Krishnamurti came, and I thought he was really something else, something really good. But it's a bit difficult to sum up his teachings, but he did say several things, what I just quoted, that, that tranquility meditation only gives you a peace of the mind, but not real peace of the mind. So that is, like the Samatha Bhavana or tranquility meditation may give you peace of mind temporarily, but it's not real peace of mind which is untainted and unconditioned like nirvana. And then the second question is, why are there so many references to Samatha Bhavana? It's not in a sutra, it's actually in this huge, thick book written by the 5th century Buddha Gosa, who was supposed to be actually a Brahmin, not originally a Buddhist. Some people say, oh, he was a Brahmin, so he didn't know much about Buddhism. But he wrote this book, and he came to Sri Lanka and wrote this book. They say after finishing writing this book, the monks in Anuradhapura said, oh, very sorry, the book is missing, we can't find it. Can you please write it again? And he wrote it again. And the second time they said, oh, very sorry, we can't find the book. Can you please write it again? And he wrote it again. Then they said, well, here are the books, 1, 2, 3, and they were exactly the same to the comma and more than 1,000 pages, very thick. So that proved his scholarliness. But one thing that I also would like to say is that scholarliness, to know a lot, is different from wisdom. You can accumulate knowledge, but it is not the same as having wisdom. So there's another thing which Krishnamurti used to say, that in Vedanta, in the Indian school of Vedanta, Veda means knowledge, Anta means end. So this means the end of knowledge. And they say where knowledge ends, wisdom starts, if you see what I mean. And then Krishnamurti says, well, in these schools for Vedanta, they spend 12 years studying the texts, and then they come to the conclusion that wisdom starts where knowledge ends. He said, couldn't they discover that a bit earlier? As you said, why do they have to have so many, objects and techniques of samatha? But it is also true, if you read that book, you would go crazy if you try to follow all of those different techniques. But they say there are techniques which may be more suitable for different characters than others. So if one doesn't have a meditation teacher, a Kammattanacharya, so to speak, then one could go through that book and say, well, this seems to be something that is suitable for me. Let me read it and try to follow it, or something like that. Mm-hmm. So where are you actually, in Colombo or in Australia, or where?
We're in Australia.
Australia. And where in Australia?
We're in Adelaide right now.
Oh, Adelaide. Southern
Yeah.
Australia. Laid back place, sort of. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now they have a Sri Lankan temple there also. And there's a Taiwanese temple, if you know that.
Yes.
Yes, very nice. Good.
Are there any other questions? I don't see any more hands going up.
Well, in that case,
I had my hand up.
yes, please speak up.
Yeah. Bante Teruwan Saranai. This is Geeta.
Mittapala?
Thank you for that. Geeta Mittapali, yes.
Yes, okay.
We can't see you. Turn on your video, please.
Okay.
Right. Hello.
Yes, hello. Teruwan Saranai.
Teruwan Saranai.
I'm holding the phone. I'm on the phone. But that was a very interesting some information about that. I'm a huge fan of J. Krishnamurti. Now, you mentioned the tranquility, the samatha and the vipassana bhavana. I have always had a sort of a question regarding to this. Sometimes people have said that samatha and vipassana are two sides of the same coin. If you could just give a sort of a simple clarification of the samatha and vipassana, I would be very grateful to you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, okay. Well, really speaking, in a little while, in less than a minute or two, we will be experiencing samatha and vipassana both, one after the other, the one sort of flowing into the other. There's no big distinction as such, but when I start usually after the metta bhavana in beginning, which is a tranquility meditation, it gives good thoughts for oneself, it clarifies the mind, and or rather, it clears up the mind from ill thoughts and bad feelings and so on, and then it starts radiating good thoughts in the environment. So that is why we experience a certain amount of tranquility and well-being, and the atmosphere or the psychosphere around one also gets sort of purified, since the mind is a kind of a transmitter also. So, and then this kind of tranquility in the mind helps to start off with an easier start with the anapanasati, the mindfulness of breathing. Now, anapanasati, actually speaking, can be used for both tranquility as for mindfulness and insight. So, samatha as well as vipassana, with the so they say if you keep on focusing on the breath, and if with a big I, if you are able to stay with the object for a longer time, many minutes, let's say, or 10, 15, 20 minutes of only anapana. Well, I don't know if anybody can do that nowadays. We can hardly stay for 5 seconds with one object because of the clicking around in the internet. Basically, we have lost our the power of concentration. So if we stay with that object for a longer time, you might get a kind of state of what is called entrance of dhyana, upachara dhyana. So you're not yet in the first jhana, but you're getting close. And you might experience, for instance, some light, like a disk of, like a moon, or even a sun or a star, in the forehead, in the middle of your forehead, inside. You get to see some light. If you can stay with that object for a longer time, and then if you continue staying with that light and you want to go staying in that state of mind, you can use it as a tranquility meditation. But if you want to use it for insight, you can contemplate on the changeability of that light. You can realize that this light is also not, unconditioned. It is conditioned. It's not me, not mine, not my own. Therefore, this is anicca, dukkha, and anatta. So you get insight into that very object which you're looking at, and you can turn that then from tranquility meditation towards insight meditation.
Okay. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Bhakti. That was very informative.
Okay.
Much merit to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Francesco, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I'm very happy to see you again, Venerable.
Let me
I'm
see.
very happy to see you again.
Buenos dias, buongiorno, come sta?
Bene, bene.
Grazie. Yes.
You must know that Venerable Olandananda has been my first master 7 years ago in his place in Pagoda Road, as I remember well. For a few days.
Okay.
It was our friend Bhante Nanasiha.
Nyanisara, yeah.
Who made the connection between you and me.
Oh, Nyanasiha, I see. Mm-hmm.
I spent a few days, more or less a week, in your place.
Yes. Molto bene, grazie.
And we had a lot of discussions. Yes,
Yes.
but I still following your sometimes your guidance
Yeah.
about the choiceless meditation.
Oh, yeah.
It has to do with some close to Vipassana meditation, or we are still in the tranquility meditation with
Okay.
this kind of approach.
Yeah, thank you, Francesco, per la questione. Anyway, this choiceless awareness, actually, that very term was coined by J. Krishnamurti once again. And this type of state of mind, where you are watching your body, feelings, and mind, actually is part of Vipassana meditation. But the choicelessness means you are not having any likes or dislikes. You don't, how do you say, judge. You don't condemn. You don't cling. You don't identify with it. Just watching. So that state of mind of choiceless awareness is actually ideal state, which comes also through Vipassana meditation, right? Mindfulness. So only that those words of choiceless awareness are not to be found in the Buddhist Tripitaka. I think you have to look it up under Krishnamurti. What does it mean, really speaking? And by the way, where in Italy are you? Microphone.
I'm
Yeah.
in Udine.
Udine.
Udine is close to Venice and to Trieste.
Yes, yes, yes.
You
That's
told me you went sometimes through Udine, coming back from Holland to the seaside in Italy.
Yes, yes. Mirano, Bolzano, and
Yeah.
Venezia, Lido di Jesolo, and all that.
Isola.
That's right.
So your
Francesco.
Italian comes from there.
Yes, 1958, from 1958, when I was 10 years old. But I've been many times since then.
How are you, Venerable?
I'm fine, thank you.
Looks like.
Looks like, thank you. I had a heart problem and I got a stent in September. So, but since then I can breathe more freely, and I took some 3 months, 4 months off, and I just started last week with this weekly meditation again. Yeah. Okay, we're going to start the guided meditation now. Isn't it, Anuja?
Yes, Venerable sir, go ahead.
Let us sit for meditation. Quietly, relaxed, with the eyes gently closed or half open as you like. Letting go of all the thoughts about past and future, and bringing your attention into the present moment. Feeling the body sitting here from top to toe and bottom to top. Feeling your legs and trunk, your hands and arms, shoulders and neck, and your head. all the way to the very top of your head, till you can feel those subtle sensations on the top of your head. And from top to toe, being aware of the whole body sitting here now. And once you really feel your body sitting here, let us then develop more metta, universal loving kindness for all beings. Including yourself and starting from yourself, by wishing from your heart, and you could repeat those words silently in your mind. May I be free from anger and fear. May I be free from greed, hatred, and delusion. May I be free from conflict and suffering, dukkha. May I be well, peaceful, and happy. May I be well and happy. May all beings, near and far, be free from conflict and suffering. Well and happy. May all beings, human, animal, the visible and invisible, be well, peaceful, and happy. May all beings in all directions, above, below, in front of me, behind me, to my right, to my left, and all around in all directions, near and far. May all beings be well, peaceful, and happy. May all beings be well and happy. Sambe satta bhavantu sukhitatta. You can repeat that last sentence either in English or in Pali. May all beings be well and happy, or Sabbi Satta Bhavantu Sukhitatta, for a minute or two as a tranquility meditation, Metta Bhavana. And with metta in your heart and mind, and with the tranquility that it brings, when you're ready for it, you can then return to an object in the present moment. For instance, the touch sensation of the breath inside your nostrils. Anapanasati bhavana. And take a couple of deep breaths in the beginning to feel the air more clearly inside your nostrils. Remember where you feel the touch sensation of the breath inside the nostrils, as you then return to the normal, natural breathing. Not following the breath in and out, not forcing the breath in and out, just feeling the breath, observing the breath, not with your eyes, but with your mind. being aware of breathing, Anapanasati. Most probably, your mind will not like to stay in one place. The chosen object, the touch of the breath, is so subtle, and your mind is not used to stay in one place. It has been roaming for ages, maybe for many lifetimes. You can't force it to stay in one place, but you can observe it between the breath and being aware of your mind, thinking, thinking, thinking. Without judging, without clinging, without condemning. Being aware choicelessly and letting those thoughts just come and go. Not to think, oh, what am I thinking? Why am I thinking? I shouldn't be thinking. Very bad thoughts. No. Just maybe label it. If you cannot watch it only, just label it as thinking, thinking, thinking. Sometimes feelings in the body, sensations may become quite strong, a bit painful if you're sitting long enough. Rather than condemning those sensations, get into them, become one with them, accepting them, melting into them. Sometimes sounds will be getting in to your mind through your ears, and rather than reacting to those sounds with likes or dislikes, just accept them as hearing, hearing, hearing. Letting come, letting go. Thoughts, feeling, sound, they all come and go, and you don't really need them at this time. Why cling to them? Why identify with them as me and mine? In the meditation, you don't need to go anywhere to find what you're looking for. If that is real peace of mind, you can't find it outside of yourself. It is already within you. Not by becoming anything special, but just by being where you are. Being, being, being. being aware choicelessly without clinging to anything, without condemning anything. Without getting involved in anything, being aware choicelessly from moment to moment to moment. Wendy, je kunt het programma ook straks nog nakijken. Het opgenomen. May all blessings come. Bhavatu Sabba Mangalam. May the invisible helpers, Devatas, protect us. Rakkantu Sabba Devata. By the power of all enlightened ones, Sambha Buddhanu Bhavi. By the power of all truth, Sambha Dhammanu Bhavi. By the power of the spiritual community, Sambha Sanghanu Bhavi. May the highest happiness, Paramang Sukham, the deepest peace, Paramashanti, the greatest security, Sadasati, ever be yours. Bhavatu Sambha Mangalam, Rakkantu Sambha Devata, Sambha Buddhanu Bhavena, Sada Sati Bhavantu Te. Bhavatu Sambha Mangalam, Rakkantu Sambha Devata, Sambha Dhammanu Bhavena, Sada Sati Bhavantu Te. Bhavatu Sambha Mangalam, Rakkantu Sambha Devata, Sambha Sanghanu Bhavena, Sada Sati Bhavantu Te. Now, towards the end of the meditation, before opening your eyes, it's good to just feel your body sitting here once again. From top to toe, bottom to top. And then to listen to the sounds around you, near and far, and also to listen to the silence around you and within you. And while relaxing body and mind, you can open your eyes and slowly. So then, for those who are here on the Zoom link, you can unmute your microphone if you have any questions regarding your practice of the meditation or the meditation which I just conducted. And that will be open to anybody who is listening in. I can hear somebody has the microphone open, but I don't hear anything except the subtle sounds. Well, it could be that you are still in such an absorption in the meditation that you can't even open your mouth, in order to put the question.
Go ahead, Koalita.
Yes. Thank you, Bhante, for conducting that session. Just one question.
Yes.
Can you please tell us how the practice of Anapanasati leads to realization, the development of insight? What's the connection between Anapanasati and the development of insight?
Yes. I don't know at what time you joined, but anyway, in my introductory talk, I sort of talked about that, but maybe not in enough detail. When you practice Anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, and you basically try to focus on the breath, and suppose if you are getting into a certain absorption on the object and you get concentrated on the breath, then you might get a certain what is called nimitta, or a sign in your, the area of your third eye, if you know what I mean, sort of between the eyes and the forehead. And that might look like a disk of light, like a moon. Sometimes it looks like a sun or a star. Anyway, a kind of a sign that you are sort of getting into the first dhyana. But you're not yet in the first dhyana, you are in what is called upachara dhyana, the absorption, sort of entrance into the absorption. And that is then, if you continue doing that and try to develop more concentration on the breath and on that sign also, you might get absorbed in the light. That would be one thing. But if you don't use your awareness or mindfulness, you might get sort of stuck there. If you want to continue and practice mindfulness of breathing as a form of vipassana or insight meditation, then you would have to look at those signs, especially that sign of the light in the third eye area of your forehead, whatever it may be, a moon, star, or some disk, and then look at that with a kind of mindfulness and start seeing the changing nature of that. That's how they say it. And also, I think in the Visuddhimagga of Buddha Ghosa, you know, that big manual of Buddhist meditation of the 5th century, it has been described. So maybe you can look up Anapanasati even in the internet, and see how that goes. But if you then see the 3 characteristics of anicca, dukkha, anatta, so that means changeability and the unsatisfactoriness and the non-self nature of that object, namely that light which you're observing, then you get an insight into the real nature. And you might not get the same kind of blissful feeling as you might get only in Anapana. But again, remember that this is not real peace of mind, it's just a piece of the mind because of your concentration. And if you want to have real peace of mind, you have to go beyond that. I would say not everybody at the same time, please. Don't know how many people are watching.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, I have a small question. Bhante,
Professor, there's another question coming up.
Yeah, I am actually calling from Canberra. Just a small question, Bhante. Thank you very much for your explanations. One thing is about this, walking meditation.
Okay.
I have been practicing Vipassana meditation for a long time, for short periods though. But as a prelude to that, I always start with Samatha Bhavana, Anapanasati, just to get my mind collected and concentrated, and then I start asana. Recently, I received some instructions from a monk about mindful walking meditation. I have never practiced walking meditation. I thought it's a bit of a difficult thing to do, while walking, to concentrate your mind. But it's something that one can practice. And under which category will walking meditation fall? Is it a Samatha Bhavana thing? Is it Samatha Bhavana? Obviously, it cannot be Vipassana, but I would think it is some technique of tranquility meditation. Or where would you put that, Bhante?
Okay, thank you very much. By the way, are you with the Embassy of Sri Lanka in Canberra?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. No,
okay.
I am not with the embassy.
Okay. You sound a little bit, how do you say, diplomatic. But anyway.
That's my nature, I presume. Yeah.
So anyway, in the meditation center where I started in Sri Lanka, the Kandu Bodhi Meditation Center, and in many places, they used to teach walking meditation as a form of meditation between the sittings. Now, for instance, if you would divide 1 hour into 2, they would have 40 minutes of sitting meditation and 20 minutes of walking, or half an hour, or even 1 hour of sitting and 30 minutes of walking. Now, the walking meditation is practiced as follows, that when you started, you're standing at a certain place. You would have to have a kind of walking meditation path, which is long enough, not too short, not too long, but maybe at least about 5 to 7 meters, or let's say 15 feet to 20 feet. And maybe, well, you could practice that in a corridor, or you could put it on, practice it on a grass field, wherever you have a chance. And by the way, there's a big Vietnamese temple in Leineham, if you know. They have plenty of space. Then you should give a kind regards to the Venerable Thich Quang Pa, the head monk, his friend. So anyway, the walking meditation you can then start once you have established the fact that you're standing there and feeling that, keeping the eyes slightly down, sort of at a distance of 5 or 6 feet in front of you on the ground, and then you become aware of your wish to start walking, and then followed by the movement, lifting, forward, placing, lifting, forward, placing, lifting, forward, placing, lifting, forward, placing. Now this is dividing the steps into 3 parts, but I've seen in Thai instruction books on meditation that they have divided it into 6 different kind of parts. For instance, left goes thus, right goes thus, left goes thus, right goes. And then the second stage would be lifting, placing, lifting, placing, lifting, placing, slowly. Then the third one, which we were doing at the beginning, lifting, forward, placing, lifting, forward, placing. And then it would go on till 6 by splitting up the kind of movements, you know, like lifting the heel and then lifting the foot and going forward and placing, lifting, turning, forward. So I usually keep it, if at all I do any walking meditation, just to those 3 parts of the movement, lifting, forward, placing. The main thing is that you then can keep your mind more on the movements, but you have to be aware that the word is not the thing. So if you can be aware of the movements without naming it, just being aware of the lifting, forward, and placing without calling it that, then of course that's fine. But some people find it helpful to put a little label and to use that label to remind them what they're doing, so that they don't start saying placing, going backwards, lifting, or something like that, you know. So anyway, to keep the mind on what you're doing, it may be helpful to use those words, but one has to realize that the label is not the real thing. And then to the question which you asked, the second part of your question, whether it is samatha or vipassana, it is some form of samatha and some part of vipassana. I think it is a kind of a bridge. And also it is a bridge between formal meditation and daily activities, because we have to also realize that you cannot sit for 24 hours, and that is not real meditation. We have to also be mindful in daily life. So if you can be mindful of walking, then that is very useful in doing things mindfully in general. Now, for instance, if you are going to the railway station and you see that the train is already standing there and the conductor is having the whistle in his mouth, he's about to blow the whistle, you're not going to stand there and say, seeing, seeing, seeing. But if you don't fall over, you should run for the train, unless they go every 20 minutes like they do in Japan, but not in Australia. So anyway, that is some reflections on the walking meditation. I don't know whether you have any other questions.
Thank you, Ante. Thank you for that explanation. So it's basically you are concentrating on the movement. I find it hard enough, even without moving, actually, when you try to concentrate your mind. It helps even to, even you wanted us to.
It helps even what?
Possible. If you can close all your doors, the 5 senses.
Yeah.
It helps in trying to tranquil your mind.
Yeah, but the Buddha said about that, if that is the case, then the blind people and the deaf people would be more advanced than the people who can hear and see. And in India, I learned a technique called Kriya Yoga, which was a deep breathing, kind of pranayama. And at the end of that, and having the eyes sort of turned up, then he said, then you have to close all the doors, which was like, if you do a lot of pranayama, that means deep breathing, and then you close those doors and you press your eyeballs a little bit, you may see a lot of light. But whether that is enlightenment or just fooling yourself, I am not quite sure.
Yeah. So I suppose what you're saying is that one must observe the sensations anyway, and try not to cling to them, or to observe sensation with upekha.
Yeah, with upekha.
I suppose that is the.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to arrange the other. Whoops. There's another phone I'm using for YouTube. Anyway, I think I'm going to close the YouTube. No, not YouTube. This is Facebook. So yes, it is, but it is, I think, quite useful, because you cannot always just sit and do nothing. It is also not good for your what is called your blood circulation if you only do sitting meditation.
Mixing some activity as well.
Yeah.
Break away from the mountains.
Yeah.
Sitting.
So the main thing is that you are aware of what you're doing in the present moment. Now, if you're sitting quiet, but your mind is all over the place, then that is also not very useful, is it? So then also you have to become aware of the mind wandering. That is also a thing that is really happening in that moment. And then if you don't get involved in that wandering mind, you just name it and then let it go, then you can move from moment to moment, staying awake and aware.
Thank you, Bhante.
Welcome. What's your name?
I'm Senaka Vijayakon.
Senaka Vijayakon. Okay. Right.
Do people have any other questions? I think in that case, we can wind up, Venerable Sir.
Yes. So then I wish you all the best and blessings of the Triple Gem. And I will chant a short blessing for you. And you can think of those who have passed away also, that you will share the merits with them. Sabbitiyo vivajjantu sambarogo vinasutu mate bhavatantarayo sukhi digayuko bhava bhavatu sabba mangala rakhantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sada sati bhavantu te bhavatu sabba mangala rakhantu sabba devata Sabbadhammanubhavena sada sakti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangala rakhantu sabba devata. Sambha sanghanubhavena sada sakti bhavantu te. Nakatya kabhutanang papaghani varana. Parittasanubhavena hantu te sam upadave. Devo vasatu kalena sassa sampatti hetu cha. Pito bhavatu loko cha. Raja bhavatu dhammiko. Sukhi hotu.
Much merit to you, sir, for conducting this meditation session and for your patience in answering all our questions. May all your spiritual aspirations be realized in this life itself, Venerable Sir, and much gratitude to you.
Pinsituveva, Sopatveva. All the best. Tashi Delek.
Arrivederci.